Hey everybody, it's Eric with a new edition of The Art of Endurance, part of the weekly podcast Mind Body Story. And today, and like all of these episodes, not just today, but every week, it's kind of my weekly reflection on things that happened to me, whether it's training or something I learned, just some takeaway in the moment that I'm working through right now that I feel like allowing myself a weekly reflection so I can be real right now. And this week, today specifically, was wonderful. I'm going to talk a little bit about a new shoe purchase and why I'm excited about it, and also a little bit about letting things go. So first, new shoes, not like the most exciting thing in the world, but for me, it's like when I get new running shoes, because I put a lot of miles on them, it's really important that as you do it, you do replace your shoes at a frequency of, I don't know what they recommend, like 6 months or 300 miles, whatever it is. But when you get new shoes, it helps your feet. It prevents injury. And in this case, I've been looking for a pair that I really enjoy, because sometimes it's really hard to find a pair that really fits your foot. And this pair I got was a speed shoe. So it is fast and I want to go fast. And I was like wanting to sprint the whole time. This was my interval workout, so I got to do a little of that, but I just wanted to go and I loved it. But I had to back off, listen to the heart rate, otherwise I was going to hurt myself. But I was really excited to find a pair of shoes that I really enjoy for interval work. Now I got to find a long endurance, like a marathon shoe for these longer runs. And I got another pair, and we'll see how they go. So that's it for just shoe talk. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about shoes, but I love them and they're exciting and I'm happy. Brooks Levitate 2s are legit. I love them. And the other part of what I wanted to talk about tonight, the big part, was learning when to let things go. And this is something that happens to us all throughout life, is we have to learn when to let things go, and that it wasn't a waste of time. I was talking with this veteran a while ago, and that theme came up because he was talking about all the things he's done and spent all these years doing. And he just said, I wasted so much time because I'm not doing these things anymore. And that's a frame that we can look at things through. That's a lens we can use. But that's really disempowering. If you think of everything you've ever done in your life, if you're not doing it now, that somehow it was a waste of time. And I thought that too. Like, for instance, I was a respiratory therapist for a little while, and I did not like it. It really didn't help me find joy and happiness, but it did provide a paycheck. So I was like, okay, in the interim period until I find something else, this is what I'm doing. And it didn't work out that way. I didn't just get to leave it. That was what I was doing when I had my biggest collapse in suicidal ideation. And it really was what I left. I got fired from in 2 different places. That started my whole journey. So that being taken away from me really started this whole process, and why I'm sitting here in front of you today healthy was because I lost that. And it was really uncomfortable. I'm not saying that it's ever comfortable, but it did seem like a waste of time for me. Like, so I was doing these things. I went to film school, and I'm thinking about like RT, respiratory therapy. That was like as far away from what I feel as a creative that I should have been doing. And so I looked at it and I was like, what was the point? And besides the paycheck, because obviously you need to pay your bills. But now I look at it and I have a skill set. I have a skill set that helps my family. When my daughter is sick, when either of them are sick, and really is a chest cold and it sounds really nasty, I know what to do. I know what to look for. And, my wife, she can be nervous about that. But I have the expertise when it comes to taking care of them in these illnesses that really brings her peace. So I can protect my children. That was not a waste of time. Film school, I didn't graduate from film school, but I spent some time in there, and I could say that was a year and a half of my life that I wasted because I'm not doing that. Well, it's not, because it did give me a skill set. It did teach me more about something I was passionate about. And even if I'm not doing it actively, if I'm not a documentary filmmaker, if I'm not a producer, director, whatever, it doesn't mean it was a waste of time, because I'm sitting here with a microphone and a soundboard, and I learned about it, and I can use these skill sets. So everything we do in life, it doesn't necessarily become the thing we do with our whole life. But we have to be okay with it not being that thing, and realize that even if 10 years down the road, I have a conversation with someone who's in a bad spot, and that happens to be the way that I connect with that person, that was not wasted time. It can be just a fraction of a second, but you have this vision of a concentric circle. I was reading in a book once that was talking about how our authentic self is at the center of this concentric circle, and every circle outside of that is a period of life. It's a job. It's something we're doing. And so you're digging through that. Every time you leave it, you dig and you're on the next concentric circle. But every time you get rid of one of those, that's something in your arsenal. That's something you know. And it could serve you in the future. You don't know. And it's the process of digging through that and getting down to that core and being free and open to step into the next concentric circle and leave the other one behind and say, thank you for your time. And I can't wait to see how you benefit me in the future. But right now I'm digging deep because I'm trying to get in here and figure out who I am. Triathlon and endurance sport was never on my radar as a career, as a thing that was going to be a huge part of my life. But because I was in a dark place, and found triathlon, and my mom gifted me the $70 entry fee because I didn't have the money to do it. Because that happened, I am here now 3 years later, having raced in France and been on a TV show about endurance sport. Like, I would have never thought that I would have been doing a TV show on endurance sport. I'm not an elite athlete. Maybe someday. Someday maybe I will be. But that's part of the concentric circle in which I'm at now. And I'm getting into the production side of things again. So it's this ebb and flow. Things come and go. And riding loose is kind of the key to it. It's one of my biggest takeaways from cycling is this idea to ride loose. And that's how I navigate life now. And what happens with that is Eric Hill, my co-founder of Project Echelon, he taught me as I was on my bike, because I had aero wheels, so they're kind of a deeper dish, and when wind hits, it can knock you around. It's a different experience. And if you ride really tight, if you white knuckle it to try to avoid that wind shifting you around, you most likely are going to crash the bike because you're preventing it from the way it was made to naturally go and right itself. It wants to stay upright. The person on it is what's wrecking the bike, because otherwise it's going to stay in a straight line, stand straight up. So if you ride loose, loosen up on your grip, and when the wind comes, you get blown to the side a little bit, and you come back and you ride it and you kind of wiggle a little bit, and you're fine. Or if you get bumped off the road with the wind, I'm in the gravel, stay calm, kind of just get the feel of it, and then make my decision to get back up on the road. All this is riding loose. And if at any time I grip on it and I try to control it too much, I crash. And so in life, I was like, oh my gosh, how many things am I trying to control? And anxiety in my life was trying to control everything that I couldn't control and thinking too far in the future of how to right this ship. When my mind was built and designed to right itself. That I firmly believe. And so when I'm going into a situation, I was going into a situation and I frame it in that way, ride loose. And when strong emotional feelings come up, I try to remember, ride loose. In especially in a business situation or a meeting, I was at this thing, I was speaking, and I went to it, and some things happened before. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone through this, but you go to do something, and all of a sudden, the night before, you get an email, you get a phone call, something happens, and it's a personal attack on you, it's a confusion, it's a miscommunication, and there's a lot of anxiety and tension and anger around it, and it can make you want to walk away from the thing and just say, screw this, is not worth it. And I've had that experience, and what I had to understand was, I'm not here for me to feel good, not here for me to be honored amongst all these people, and my expectation of no one attacking me is just not realistic. It isn't, because it's going to happen, because people out there are hurting, and when you're hurting, you go to hurt people that touch the wound that you're touching, and you're going to hurt them to stop them, to discredit them. So when I'm there, riding loose says everything in me, the old me that's still there, wants to go away, wants to quit, wants to go in my cave where it's safe, where I know nobody can touch me, no one can hurt my feelings, no one can make me feel those negative, disempowered feelings that come when somebody touches that wound, touches that little voice inside of me and says, hey, you're not so tough, you're not so great, you're an imposter, you're weak, you're a liar, you're a phony, you're a fraud. Whatever it is in my head, it's saying, shut up. We don't want to hear your voice. And so when I hear that, I have to ride loose and let that blow me around a little bit and know that the only time I fail, the only time I feel really bad is when I shut up, when I stop talking, when I stop sharing what's in my heart, when I start telling myself that what I have to say is boring, it's been done, nobody needs to hear it. People listening are going, yeah, that's pretty basic information. I've known that my whole life, so I'm tuning out off the channel. I'm not listening anymore. That's what kills me. That's the silence. That's the self-imposed shame. And so when I'm in an environment where I feel that I'm trying to control everything, or I'm expecting someone to do everything for me, or whatever it is, I have to realize that, hey, I got to ride loose, and I've got to be aware enough to understand what it is that I'm doing. What do I need to change, or do I need to step away because I'm not helping this thing, or this thing is not healthy, or I'm being used, or whatever the case may be. I have to be aware of those winds coming at me and really reflect and sit and not make an initial gut reaction, but go through it and really analyze. Let it blow me around. Let it jostle me. Let the feelings come up. And if I need to, ask someone's help that I trust to actually help me navigate those feelings. And once you're on the other side of that wind, once the wind dies down and you're kind of settled and you're on that seat of consciousness when you can really think clearly, that's when you can make the decision. Like, is this something I need to continue to pursue? Or is there something else that I'm ignoring that needs my attention? And so that's where I'm at in a place this last week, is just really refocusing, really figuring out what it is that wind, after all of the tension happens and all of the confusion lifts, and I sit, having not quit, I can listen to myself and feel, where is it that I need to go? Where is this wind blowing me? What is it that I need to do? What is it that my mind needs to focus on? And for me, this week has really been a reminder of just how much I love our nonprofit Project Echelon. I just had the meeting, not the meeting, but the podcast episode that will be going live, I hope Monday. If not, it'll be the following Monday, where I sat down with Eric Hill, co-founder of Project Echelon, my buddy, and talked about that. And it was so amazing. And I feel like fully invested in just going all in and really saying, Project Echelon, you're my baby, and I'm going to do everything I can to nurture and care for you and help this thing grow so we can help the most amount of people possible. The most amount of veterans can get active and start to feel the healing that I felt. Because I'm not the one-stop shop. Project Echelon is not the one-stop shop, but we are a place that has a message, and it is helping veterans, and we want to help any of those veterans who are willing to take that step into vulnerability and say, hey, help me figure this out. I need something, and this looks interesting. Let me help you move your body. Let me help you get trained with elite athletes that can help guide you in that process. So that is what this week has been about for me, is understanding and the reminder that I have to ride loose and not try to control everything around me so much, and be open to the fact that not everything I'm doing has to be what I do for my entire life. Sometimes out of the doing it wasn't a waste of time. Sometimes it's just a relationship that comes out of the thing that we left behind. It was worth it just to go into this process to learn about myself and to develop some relationships, just one or two, and it's worth it. So on the other side of that, there's always something. It's a skill set. It's a knowledge. It's a topic-based conversation that could happen in the future, but because you did it, you have that knowledge. You have that insight, and there can be a connection in there. You never know. So nothing was a waste of time. Nothing that we've done in career, or it was a waste of time. Nothing in relationship. There was lessons that we can draw from it. There's experience. There's conversations. There's skill sets that serve us. Respiratory therapy was not my career. It was a thing I did, and now I have a skill set that helps me be a better dad. That's worth it to me. Going into other things and developing relationships, these are people in my corner that I have, and they might not be Project Echelon board members or employees, but they do have my back, and they do something that I don't do. Bahesha Doan at Disabled Veteran is phenomenal with dogs and service dogs. I don't have to create a service dog program now because I have someone in my corner that does it well, does it exceptionally well, so I don't have to do that. I have Eric Hill in my corner. He's an elite level athlete, runner, cyclist, helps me with triathlon and training and all that stuff, so I don't have to go to school and become a sports medicine person or a physical therapist or something, because I have people that know that stuff and care about me and will invest in me and help me do this for other people. So I do what I do. I learn what I learn. I go through that concentric circle. I let go of the stuff that I have to let go. I keep going deeper and deeper. And every time I go through it, I get closer to the authentic self. And every time I get closer to the authentic self, I become more me. And I become more able to love and more able to not be so wounded and not so offended, because I've learned from all those experiences. But it came from riding loose and knowing that it's okay if I step away from something. Quitting is not stepping away. Quitting is never, ever going forward again in your life and saying, I'm out of the game. I'm not even going to try anymore. Sometimes the direction changes, but riding loose is being free enough to not wreck the ship because we weren't grabbing onto our life so hard, trying to control it that I have to be this one thing for the rest of my life. I have to achieve this one thing, otherwise I'm a failure. That's not the case. We're not defined by our success and our failures or our vocation. Our joy comes from connecting with the real us. And you have to ride loose and be okay with stepping away from things and understanding when we need to and when we're trying to step away just because we're feeling a little bit lazy, feeling like this is too hard. So that is what my takeaway was. And I'm really enjoying this little weekly get together with you guys because it's just a nice accountability for me because I put things out there and I got to live up to it. I've got to remind myself what I'm doing. And remind myself how I get to the place that I was at, where I was suicidal and now I'm not. These help me, and I hope they help you. So I'm going to keep doing these, and it might not always be on a Thursday, but I'm going to try my best to do Thursdays every week, Art of Endurance. Otherwise, Mondays is still Mind Body Story every Monday at 7:30, and I'll share those across social media. So that's going to do it for today on this episode for this week of The Art of Endurance. And who knows what wonderful experiences I'll have, both good and bad, over the next week. But I will be back next week sharing them with you, what I learned, what I didn't learn, whatever the case may be. I'm going to share it here. So thank you for checking in with me, and until next time, journey well, my friends.